Hey everybody, it's the dude here to bring you another video. After 3 episodes without Maggie and Sasha, we are finally at the Hilltop. So far this season, each episode after the premiere has focused on a different community, starting with the Kingdom, then the Sanctuary, then back at Alexandria, and finally the Hilltop. Next episode is all Tara and Heath, where they'll no doubt run into a even newer group. I hope when we look back at this season it doesn't feel disjointed. One of my biggest issues with the show in general is that we never really get enough time with each character. It's tough to imagine any of the characters we've seen in Season 7 dying because they haven't had much time. I really hope in the second half of this season all of the characters are together and in every episode, because if and when any of them die, it needs to feel like the show has really earned it. Alright, with that said, here is my review and analysis of Season 7, Episode 5 of The Walking Dead. Go-Getters. Go-Getters is what Simon calls Rick's group, and it's true. Even if they're not all working towards providing for Negan, each and every one of Rick's people is extremely active. Rick and Aaron are out looking for supplies. Michonne is out doing God knows what. Carl is trying to kill Negan. Rosita and Eugene are trying to make bullets. They're real go-getters. Okay, we open on Maggie Green's sad green eyes. She's just woken up and she sees blue flowers on her bedside table. These are similar to the flowers that were left for Rick when he was in a coma in Season 1. She rolls over to see Dr. Carson. Now, in my Episode 3 review, I theorized that this Dr. Carson and the Dr. Carson at the Sanctuary had to be related. Possibly Negan took one when he took half of the Hilltop stuff. At first I thought maybe they were brothers, but the more I think about it, they're most likely father and son. So, Dr. Carson Jr. gives Maggie a clear medical explanation of what was happening to her and what caused her pain, explaining that it's rare this early in the pregnancy, but can be caused by severe trauma, pointing out some bruises on her abdomen. Most likely this injury was caused by the fight Maggie had with the female savior last season. Now, some people think that Maggie was poisoned by the saviors in an attempt to get Rick and the group out in the open. Specifically Enid, who had apparently been a spy for the saviors this whole time, poisoned her with the pickles she gives her to eat in the episode right before the season finale. But this all goes out the window with Dr. Carson's clear medical explanation. It was not a poisoning. But honestly, I was never really a big fan of the secret agent Enid theory. If Enid's been a spy for the Saviors, that means Negan has known about Alexandria for way longer than we think he has. And why wouldn't he have been getting half their shit that whole time? Honestly, I just think that Enid is a replacement for Sophia. In the comics, at this point, Sophia has been adopted by Maggie. And that's really what Maggie needs right now. Carson says the baby's heart rate is normal and lets her listen. Dr. Carson says, "Now I really think you need to stay here for the duration of your pregnancy. If anything else happens, I can take care of it." Maggie sits up. Can you say that again? What? Everything you just said. It seems to me like after Maggie heard her baby's heartbeat, she stops hearing everything. It would have been really nice to actually have Dr. Carson's voice and all the other sound fade out, to focus on the heartbeat. Later, Maggie and Sasha restate everything Dr. Carson says here, so I think it would have been much more powerful if we had been seeing it through Maggie's perspective, just hearing the baby's heartbeat. I think it could have made it clearer that she wasn't really hearing what he was saying. Maggie leaves, and outside of the trailer, she finds Sasha waiting for her. Sasha takes Maggie to where Glenn and Abraham were buried, far back behind the Barrington house. In the books, Maggie buries Glenn out in the open for everyone to see. We learn later that the fact that Sasha buried the bodies at all angers Gregory. So if they were already breaking the rules, why not just have them bury them out in the open? Now, in the show, I'm sure Jesus put them back here because he couldn't say no when they said they wanted to bury them. In the books, having Maggie mourn out in the open really gave her a sense of isolation that I kind of lose from placing the scene back behind the building with all these barrels and plants up against the fence. Sasha hands Maggie the pocket watch. It was in Glenn's pocket. All Abraham had was a cigar. To me, this is the perfect send-off to these two characters. Glenn was all about his relationship with Maggie. He had the watch. But Abe, he didn't have something that was about Rosita or Sasha. He had a cigar. He was all about the joy in life, the little moments that make it all worthwhile. In the comics, Maggie is alone at this point. She has Sophia, but Sophia's still a little girl. She can't really comfort Maggie. When she first gets to the Hilltop, she meets a woman named Brianna, who befriends her, tells her about the people she's lost, and becomes sort of a right-hand woman to Maggie. It seems like Sasha has filled this role, and she will continue to be at Maggie's side. They've been building a strong relationship since the prison fell in the middle of season 4. They were lost in the woods with Bob, looking for Glenn. They found Terminus together. They mourned for Beth and Tyrese's death together. And when Sasha was at her worst at the end of season 5, when she was almost about to kill Gabriel, Maggie stopped her. They've been building these two for a long time, and this is where they were going. They both crack a smile, but then start to cry. Maggie places the watch down on the grave. Am I the only one who hates when a character leaves the dead character's most prized possession on their grave? It's symbolic, sure, but that was her father's watch. She should keep it. Jesus shows up, carrying flowers. He replaces the ones on the grave, and Sasha tells Maggie that he's the one that put the ones by her bedside table. I read somewhere that blue flowers inspire strength and calming. What's green? Release. We can see how good this makes Maggie feel, and it's really the beginning of a pretty strong relationship between her and Jesus when Gregory shows up. You people said you got 'em all! We thought we did. It was just an outpost. Do they know the deal you made us take, Marcia? Ha! It's great to see Gregory being Gregory right from the start. And I love how he forgets everybody's names, calls her Marcia, calls Rick Rich. Probably why Jesus goes by Jesus instead of his real name, Paul Rovia. Gregory tells them they have to get out of here when he sees the graves. Did you do this? We don't bury our dead, we burn them. I did not agree to this. If they think we helped attack their outpost, they'll do that to us. Jesus, do you have any idea what plausible deniability means? Yes? Well then you know. If believe we have plausible deniability. Hey, that's a double line. You know, when a character says a line once, and then says it again with different inflection for more emphasis, that's 1 point for plausible deniability. Listen, I'm a good guy. You can stay the night, but leave in the morning. We'll talk more about it tonight. No, I made my decision. I'm just saying. Do you want to go back with them? I'll take them back. I know what you meant. Jesus is clearly defiant of Gregory, but he's still kind of weak-willed. This really isn't the Jesus I want. Now, it might have to do with how he looks, because in the comic book, Jesus is tall. I mean, really tall. Huge. Like he could stand up to anybody. He's got dark eyes and black hair. And when I read him, I just imagined a deeper, more powerful voice. Show Jesus just doesn't have that presence. Now, maybe the reason they've made him seem a little weaker is to draw out the tension on whether Gregory will allow Maggie and Sasha to stay. But I don't think that that is worth not getting the Jesus that I want. Back at Alexandria, Carl is throwing darts while Rick is trying to talk to him. I've heard some people think that this shot right here is a reference to our most recent presidential election. The date 11/8/16 is pretty clear, and with Carl missing every dart he throws, some people wondered whether the showrunners were trying to say that we missed the mark with this election this year. Well, if that's true, this wouldn't be the first time this season that I've had a little too much politics with my Walking Dead. In episode 3, apparently, there is a Trump zombie beneath the underpass. To be fair, both episodes were shot this summer, well before the election results, though the dartboard shot could have been put in later. But I should point out that the numbers 11/8/16 appear in that order on every single regulation dartboard. So really, I just think it's nothing more than a coincidence. Most likely all this shows us is that Carl is distracted by what Rick is asking of him. We need supplies. They're gonna be coming back soon. Is this how it's gonna be now? Yes, it is. You know that. See you in a few days. Rick heads out defeated. It seems like he's only taking Aaron with him on this supply run, which is interesting. I think both of them need more screen time and more screen time together. He turns to Michonne, handing her a walkie-talkie. If you change your mind, we're heading north. So in thinking about the Morse code theory that Daryl was communicating with Rick all during last episode, specifically that he communicated the word east to Rick, implying that the Saviors lived to the east of Alexandria, Rick is heading north. So if Rick does know that the Saviors are to the east of him, he's trying to go somewhere where he thinks they are not. That is, if he got that message from Daryl, which I am still unconvinced about. All we know for sure is that Rick is not heading towards the sanctuary. Michonne gives Rick a big, long kiss, imparting that even if she doesn't agree with him, she still loves him. He says thank you and leaves her holding the walkie-talkie. Later, we see Carl talking to Michonne. He asks her why she didn't go with Rick. She says, "I have to figure some things out." Well, she's packing, so we know she's going somewhere for at least a little bit of time. Hopefully it's not the middle of a field without a gun. She's not in the rest of the episode, so where is Michonne going? Maybe she's trying to find out where the Saviors live, see how many people they have, see if they can really fight them, like she wants to. It's possible that in the next several episodes she'll be out in the world and Rick and Aaron will be out in the world, and maybe they'll accidentally meet up. Maybe her or Rick could get into some kind of trouble and then communicate with the walkie-talkies they have. Maybe Michonne can discover another outpost that gives them some kind of information that gives them a leg up against the Saviors. And when Rick and her meet up, instead of Rick being mad, this changes everything. There are a lot of possibilities, but I think that Rick and Michonne are going to meet up outside of Alexandria before this half season ends. When Michonne leaves, Carl looks out the window and spots Enid preparing to climb over the wall. Carl comes up to her. She's like, "I need to see Maggie." "You're walking to the hilltop?" "It's far." "I'll be fine." "Maybe." "I'll be fine." "Hey, double line." "I have better aim than you." "Ooh, because of the eye thing?" Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't you still need to close one eye to aim a gun anyway? Sure, his hand-to-hand depth perception probably sucks now, but didn't it always? I'm not saving you anymore. That's what happened in the armory? You saved me? Yeah. You made it back in one piece. You're still here. I'm not talking about that. I'm sorry you had to see it. I'm not. And they head their separate ways. Back at the hilltop, Sasha is giving Jesus shit for not having their back more against Gregory. But he says it's not that simple. Sasha offers to pay Maggie's way by scavenging for the hilltop. And Jesus is like, "Maybe, but I don't want that." "What do you want, Jesus? What do you want this place to be?" Double line. See, I don't really like this kind of Jesus. You know, being all wishy-washy, indecisive. Maybe. Just say yes, that's a good idea. He hands her the necklace that Rosita made for Abe, the one that he left here last season. The look Sasha has on her face makes me think that she knows the whole story behind this necklace. But as far as we've seen, she had no idea that Rosita made that for him, and didn't really get close enough to him to see it until he left it at the hilltop. But maybe this is just bringing up those feelings about Abe again. I'm interested to see whether or not she gives this to Rosita. Neither of them really know that Abe left it there because he had feelings for Sasha, so I wonder what she would tell to Rosita if she did give it to her. Would she say that it was in Abe's pocket? Would she say that it was at the hilltop? I don't know how it got there. Does she even know that Rosita gave it to him? I'm very interested in what happens with this necklace and what happens between Sasha and Rosita. Maggie comes in and asks Jesus, "Why do you burn your dead?" "The idea was just to keep going." "What do you have to remember him by?" "Us." And he leaves. This reminded me of something Glenn said to Enid last season. "You honor the dead by going on. You live because they don't get to." It's good to see this theme being brought up again, and in this case being imparted to Maggie. Back out in the world, Enid is riding her bike along when a zombie shows up out of nowhere. Suddenly, a car hits the walker and crashes into a pole, just before backing up into it, taking it out. It's Carl! In the comics, Rick teaches Carl how to drive when they're alone after the prison falls. It's great to see this finally come up. Back in the hilltop, in the middle of the night, Maggie and Sasha are awoken by music. It's coming from a car, there's fires everywhere, the gate is busted open, their windows are locked, and zombies are pouring into the hilltop. A couple questions. How did the gate get open? Later, Gregory refers to the gate as having been broken. So, what broke it? Initially, I thought that the car must have been driven through the gate to bust it open. But two things are wrong with that. One, nobody's in the car to drive it, and two, wouldn't that noise be the thing to wake them up? It seems like the car was put into place, then they paused, locked all the windows, lit all the fires, left, and then started the music. So if the car was pushed in, what could have opened the gate to, one, break it, and two, not cause any noise? Second, if the music didn't start until after they locked all the windows and started the fires, why as soon as Maggie and Sasha wake up and they look out the window, are all the zombies immediately coming in? Did the Saviors bring the zombies there, corralling them into the front of the hilltop? If so, where the fuck are all the guards? Did the Saviors kill them? If so, don't you think we would have heard about that? Right off the bat, it all just seemed a little too unbelievable. Sasha heads for the roof of the trailer, leaving Maggie to rest like she should. She hops down down like a boss just as Maggie gets on the roof. Damn it, Maggie. I'm sorry. I might be saying this because I couldn't do it, but how did Maggie, in her condition, hoist herself up just like Sasha did? I could be underestimating Meg. Dr. Carson's telling her that she's ill, but maybe she feels right as rain. But my initial reaction was, what the fuck? How are you getting up on that roof without us visibly seeing any pain? She calls to Jesus at the Barrington house to go help Sasha. He flips over the railing and slides down the column like a boss. That's the Jesus I love. Maggie tells two other dudes to go close the gate. This is Cal and Eduardo, the two Hilltop guards from the comics, who we saw very briefly in last season's Hilltop episode. What the fuck were they guarding when this was getting set up? Gregory looks out of his window to see what's going on before creeping back into the darkness like the coward he is. Sasha can't seem to find a way to get the music to stop when Maggie shows up riding a fucking tractor. It's this tractor, the one that was in the background during the grave scene. The graves were dug behind the Barrington house. So in maybe 30 seconds, Maggie got down from the trailer, an impressive feat in its own way, behind the building, started the tractor, and then slowly made her way around the other side of the building. I'm sorry, I'm not really crazy about the tractor. I feel like it's really fun, but it's just a little too ridiculous and silly for me. I really wish there was a more character-driven, intuitive way that Maggie and Sasha could stop the music. Still, the scene flows really nicely, the Sasha and Jesus action is awesome, and it's well timed to the music and the crushing of the car. Back on the road, Carl is telling Enid why he watched the Negan kill. Because when it was happening, I knew that I needed to remember it, so that when I have a chance to kill him, I would have a choice. Carl, just like Rick, is all, I'm gonna kill you. But unlike Rick, he doesn't have the weight of the community on his shoulders, so he can take things into his own hands. Enid says she would kill Negan too, even though she didn't see it, for the ones she loved. Carl says, it's not for them. Back at the Hilltop, Jesus is arguing with Gregory on whether or not Maggie and Sasha should stay, when they both show up. Nobody really gets to say anything that gets them anywhere before the Saviors show up. Gregory orders Maggie and Sasha into the closet, while he deals with the Saviors. Back on the road, the conversation must have gotten pretty grim. Enid is now walking well ahead of Carl, on the verge of tears, when Carl finds roller skates. Their mood changes, and in a world full of so much darkness, they get to be kids again. Back at the Hilltop, my new favorite character, Simon, and the Saviors are piling into the Barrington house. Simon says, "You're Gregory. We need to talk. Let's talk in your study. I want to see that painting." Can't remember who told me about it, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter much anymore. Don't know if you heard what happened. Our brothers and sisters in arms in operation? What do you mean? It means we need to talk. Hey, Simon's first double line. I can imagine Gregory gives the same spiel about the painting to everyone who comes to the Hilltop. It sounds like Simon heard about the painting from one of the Saviors who was killed at the outpost that was in charge of the Hilltop. Simon takes Gregory into the study, and then a Savior shuts the door behind them. Inside, they both stand admiring the painting. Wow. Just wow. Wow, 2 double lines in a row. This is a painting of Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, one of the first people to ever rule a huge number of dynasties at one point, similar to the way Negan controls the Sanctuary, the Kingdom, the Hilltop, and Alexandria. At the end of his life, Charles V stepped down from his position and joined a monastery. Whether or not that means that is Negan's ultimate end, one thing is for certain is that Negan and Charles V dress exactly the same. Same color scheme and everything. In regarding last night, message received, loud and clear. Simon's like, what was the message? You said it was loud and clear. I don't think you were showing us who's boss. Oh, yeah. Shit. Like they didn't show him who's boss when Negan showed up a while ago and beat a kid to death. Last night, that was us, working our asses off to provide you an example. You got a nice place. People in here probably forget what the corpses look like, what they smell like. It's so funny to hear Simon talk like this. I feel like he's doing a Negan impersonation. His cadence and his pacing is just spot on Negan. Now, we were gonna kill him for you, to remind you of the service we can provide. In the books, the Savior's big selling point is, we'll kill all the dead and you give us half your shit. It's good to see that that is still the only service they claim to provide in the show. And you cleaned up the mess yourself. Good on you. Well, we must have picked up some skills from your people. If you think about it, you still saved us. Man, Gregory is really good at schmoozing the Saviors. Well, that's the nice way to look at it. I appreciate that. The other people of ours you were dealing with, I think they got spoiled working with a guy like you. I think they might have gotten a little soft. What got them butchered, I imagine. They're dead? He may be good at telling the saviors what they want to hear, but he doesn't have the best poker face. Very, very dead. Extremely dead. Double line. But you know, it all worked out, because the people that killed them, they work for us now. Thank you. It means a lot that you recognize what we bring to the table. That's why you're still here, and others aren't. I get the feeling that initially someone else was in charge of the Hilltop. Then Negan showed up, and the Saviors found that they really couldn't work with that guy. It's possible if the leader was thinking about going against the Saviors that Gregory ratted him out, earning the Saviors' trust and becoming the new leader. Jesus says later that Gregory was already in charge when he got there, but it sounds like the Saviors knew they could work with Gregory, so they put him in charge. Anything else you want me to know? Actually, there is. Gregory takes Simon out of the study and heads to the closet. Now, I hate this kind of tension, because as soon as they cut to outside of the study, and Gregory didn't say, there's 2 Alexandrians here, I knew that Maggie and Sasha weren't going to be found out. Did that fool anybody, this whole bit? This is something you see in every movie. Somebody's trying to rat out the good guys, and they walk the other bad guy to where they're supposed to be hiding, and then they're not there. I just don't think that the show should have even tried something like this. It just, to me, it felt a little cheap, and it didn't even work. Gregory tries to pretend that he was talking about the alcohol the whole time, and when Gregory offers him 1 bottle, Simon takes the whole box for Negan. You want to slide that one back in? Sorry, I shouldn't ask. You want to slide that one back in. Period. Simon says, double line. Okay, now we're gonna take half your shit. Which was a little perplexing to me. I assumed that the take half your shit rule really only applied to the first visit. Even if the communities are earning for Negan, eventually if you take half of their stuff every time, they're just gonna run out. See this shot right here? This is the problem with Jesus. Everyone in this room is 1.5 feet taller than him. That's just not the Jesus I want. It's hilarious. Simon orders the painting to be taken to Negan. He's like, oh, one last thing. Can I get a kneel out of you? Excuse me? Kneel. And Gregory does. I'm not sure why Jesus just gets to stand there not kneeling, but it's good to see Gregory made a fool of. Just outside, Carl and Enid have just arrived at the Hilltop to see the Saviors packing up to leave. Carl says, I don't think Negan's here. I don't see that black truck. Pretty sly of Carl to catch that Negan has his own personal truck. Even I didn't catch that last week. Carl says he has to do it. He has to kill Negan, and he asks Enid to come with him, but she asks him to stay, and then they kiss. I'm actually pretty impressed with both of these actors. The moment before, during, and after the kiss is all one long take, and I think their performance is really strong. I wonder when the next time these characters will see each other. It seems like their relationship is just starting to get somewhere, and now they're parting ways. Gregory comes into his bedroom to find Maggie and Sasha waiting for him. This is my bedroom. What if they came in here before you gave us up? They would have killed you first. Honey, I'm talking to Jesus here. Stop. They're staying. Or do you want to make it public? Do you want to make the deal with Alexandria public? You know, that sounded to me like a double line. So you're going to be in charge now? No. It's just that you won't be. Gregory concedes, like we knew he would the whole episode. And that's one of my big problems with this episode. I feel like they stretched this issue out. Gregory saunters over to Maggie. See, dear, the Saviors can actually be quite reasonable. And Maggie racks him across the face. Gregory had Glenn's watch. She takes it from him. It's a fine watch. Shouldn't be left out in the rain. It's okay, Gregory. I agree. This is our home now, so you'll learn to start to call me by my name. Not Marcia, not dear, not honey. Maggie. Maggie Ree. Fucking love Maggie. Couple things about this bit. She says she doesn't want to be referred to as honey. Ironically, the shirt Jesus gave her to wear says hun on it. There was a double line in there with Maggie Ree. Speaking of Ree, that is Glenn's previously unspoken last name. When I first heard that, I, being a major nerd, was just like, yeah, Glenn's last name, but I was wondering if everybody else got that. In the comics, Maggie's punch in this scene takes place out in the open, in front of all of the people of the Hilltop. We don't need the scene where Jesus and Sasha look at Maggie like she's the new leader. We just feel it. Everybody feels it. And I think it's important for more than just Jesus, Gregory, and Sasha to be there for this moment for Maggie. So though this was very powerful for her character, I think it could have been made more powerful if it was out in the open. Jesus apologizes to Maggie about not solving this issue in the first scene of the episode like he should have. When Maggie leaves to go rest, Sasha says, if you want to make it up to us, can you find where Negan lives? In my episode 4 review, I thought that Maggie would do this, but I think it's even more interesting that Sasha does it, intending to keep it all a secret from Maggie. Outside, back at the graves, Maggie sees Enid, and they have a very meaningful reunion. Back in the trailer, Enid asks Maggie about the tractor incident, and Maggie says that it actually wasn't her first time to run over a car with a tractor, and she tells this cute story about this boyfriend she used to have. This almost fixes my issues with the tractor not being something that was character-driven, so I'm glad that they gave us this backstory. When Sasha shows up, she's a little less surprised than I think she should be about finding Enid there. She asks Enid if she came alone, and Enid lies and says she did. Why were there balloons on Abraham's grave? I guess Enid put the balloons over the wrong grave. Maggie looks at the watch. I was gonna use this to mark Glenn's. It was my dad's. He gave it to him, but I'm giving it to you. Boy, Enid better not be a secret savior spy. These three join hands in prayer. And it's the first time in a little while I think Maggie has felt like she had a family around her. Outside, we see that the gate has been fixed and it's getting locked up by the blacksmith and his apprentice. These are characters from the comics that we saw very briefly in Season 6's Hilltop episode, and I was really hoping to get introductions to them this episode, but hopefully we'll get that soon. As the saviors are packing up, we hear a harsh scraping sound. It's the sound of Sasha sharpening a knife. She's smoking the cigar that Abraham had in his pocket. We see Jesus hop in the back of the Negan truck. He gets one of the bottles that Simon took from Gregory, takes a swig, and then pours it out the back. When, hey, Jesus turns and he sees Carl hunkered down behind some boxes and cracks a big old smile. Yes! In the comics, right after Negan makes his first pickup at Alexandria, that is when Carl sneaks in the back of their trucks. In that case, he has a huge automatic rifle. In the show here, he has no such thing. How will that factor into his future plans? Seeing this final scene made me get so excited for the rest of the season that I forgot about some of the little things I didn't like about this episode. I wasn't crazy about how long they dragged out the suspense of whether Maggie and Sasha were going to be able to say, and I wasn't crazy about the tractor scene. But still, the character development, the character moments, all the Carl stuff, which I absolutely loved. All in all, it's a pretty good episode. I'm really excited to see what happens with Rick and Michonne outside of Alexandria, Carl and Jesus at the sanctuary. Let's not forget what the fuck is going on with Daryl. There's so much that I'm hyped about. Unfortunately, next episode is just Heath and Tara. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we know we have to wait a little longer before we get any kind of resolution to these stories. Alright everybody, that's all for me. Please remember to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and watch it again. This has been The Dude. See ya.